Well, welcome back everyone. I'm trying to make some progress in this pile of crap right here. I'm going to run the return and the feed today for this boost reference regulator right here. Of course, I got to do a couple more things right here. I still have to tap the intake for the blow-off valve, which don't have the stuff right here, and I still have to find out where in this guy I'm going to tap this for the boost reference for the regulator. So let me go on back here and show you some more things we're doing. So here's something I didn't know. I was talking to Kevin over at CSU and I said, hey, I got this down there. It was submerged, so it'll be submerged in the fuel so it doesn't cause any bubbles. He's like, you never want to have a return line submerged into the fuel. So I asked him, do you want to just, I want to just feed it down right here? He's like, yep. So there's this one more thing about this you guys need to know. Like I was talking to Aeromotive and they're like, baffles for the return is the best thing to do, because if you have one of these in there, it could start swirling the fuel around and cause issues. So what I might do is I might take this guy and cut it right here, because the other end I can pretty much connect this inside this guy, and I might aim it at the back of the fuel tank if it has problems. That way it's hitting this and not splashing directly into fuel. So that's one thing that I might do, because this return on a carburetor that's going to do boost is very important, because you're going to have a lot more than 7 psi whenever boost starts coming up. So down here underneath the truck, I've replaced my A1000 with an eliminator pump. Now there's one thing I still have to do with all this. I need to run a 10 feed to the regulator, because the A1000 is an 8 feed and I have a 10 line going to this guy. It's supposed to be a 12, but for right now I think it's okay, because I have so much more things to do, and believe it or not, just this in PTFE with a larger filter housing, this is almost 2.5, but only has 10 inlets right here, which needs to be 12. So for right now, just to make sure everything's working, and I'm just not worried about it right now, because I know when I first set this up, I'm not going to be leaning on this hard at all. So what I'll do is I'll get everything working to my best ability with this guy right here. I'm only have like about 8 psi going to it. I know that's not going to max any of this setup out at 8 psi, but when I start cranking it up, I'm definitely going to have to change the bulkhead, which is a 10, to a 12 right here, 12 line, get a 2.5 inch filter housing with a bigger filter, and to feed this guy with the 12. So that will have to be done later on, just so you guys know about that, especially using these eliminator pumps. That's what Aeromotive told me. And also Kevin, he got on to me, he's like, what is that, a 10? I'm like, yeah. And I tried to give him my explanation, but
No, I don't give a hoot. Step up! This is not a Mickey Mouse program!
I know he's like, nope, don't do it. So for right now, I'm just going to do this, but just know that I do have to upgrade this later on. Now I have 2 of these filters, and I do feel comfortable on the other end before the regulator to run this guy right here. I have some Aeromotive 40 microns that I'm going to put at the front there right before the regulator to keep any trash from circulating, getting the carb and screwing things up. So I do feel comfortable using this. Now there's one thing I want you guys to look at with these guys. If you get these, just know that if you stab the tin in there, unless you get the tin that's from an actual, like a manufacturer, not from these guys right here or some of these cheap knockoffs of these filter housings, that they are not 10AN. So I had to port these guys out. Now there's one more thing to think about this when you're running E85 is E85 and aluminum don't necessarily get along perfectly together. So when you knock these out without any anodizing on there, just keep an eye on these things right here. It could cause some problems. It's going to cause more maintenance. But like I said, for right now, I had all this stuff, right? So whatever I can use for right now before I really start leaning on it, I'm going to use. And all this stuff right here is easily replaceable later on down the line. So the stuff that's easy to replace, I'm going to worry about that later on. But one thing about these, if you saw some of these are 50 millimeter, right? And they have this filter in there. So think about this. When this starts closing up, look how close it gets to the edges of this. That's why I like having larger filter bodies. So that way it's not pinching off any flow, because even if it goes in this way or that way, it still has to get past this to go to the other end. So when I use these filters, I like to put the inlet on this side, because this is more smooth and it goes around all this and it pushes through all this. I know they say to do it, this way. I mean, I've seen different manufacturers say do it this way, that way. I prefer to do it this way, because I think it's going to work just fine. So that's what I'm going to try at first. Like I said, we're not leaning on this thing at first. We're making sure it's all working. So I think when I first get this set up, this will be fine. All right, so we got the 10 feed all situated and ran. Let me show you what's going on up there. So all the fuel lines used to run up this side, but for this to work with everything now, I had to run them. I started them from that side, then ran them right here. We got the 10 feed, we got the 10 return, and then we move up this way. I ran both the 10s underneath the cab mounts. Made sure we had a good location right here for these guys to be locked down so I don't hit the tire. And then I had to cut a hole right here, keep everything over here. And the reason why it's right there is because you see my headers. There's no other place really to run all this. So that's why I cut a hole right there to keep it all off. Let's go up top. Then it comes on up, right on out there. I have a 58 millimeter filter right here. I'm gonna put a 40 micron filter in this one because it goes right before the reg. This is gonna be the end, but I was happy that the return right here, they want this to be a straight feed right off, which I was able to do that. I'm probably gonna get some insulation right here because it's kind of close to the headers, but I wanna insulate this so that way it doesn't have any heat or anything like that. It's gonna screw it up. And then of course, off your reg, it's very important that you don't do a rail right here or a log. You need to come right off the reg to the left and the right because it could cause fueling issues in the front and the rear. If you have a feed going off this, it's breaking off. It might not feed the bowls correctly. So they want you to come right off the reg with this guy right here. And then this guy right here is going to be my mechanical gauge for the fuel pressure. Comes out this way and goes over here. Like that. So until I get my grid set up, I can log everything electronically. I'll have a boost gauge right here, have my air fuel, and I'll have fuel pressure right there. That way I can put a GoPro in here and log it all the old school way until I get everything else set up. But man, we're making progress. It's still got a ton to do. I'm telling you, a ton to do. It may not look like it, but man, I got a ton to do. There's a ton of small stuff. But making progress, guys. Let me know what you think. And until next time, y'all get on y'all's projects too. Peace.